Welcome to Uncaged, a show that celebrates thought leadership from today's top business leaders. The program provides a voice to amazing executives from around the globe who are shaping the world of business today and mapping the path to the commerce of tomorrow. Today, we're speaking with Tina Dominguez. Hey, Tina, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
I am well. And, we're going to be talking about an area of business that I think sometimes gets overlooked. And I would say it's absolutely critical for success. We're going to be talking about operations with a real people focus. Tina describes it much better than I do. People operations and kind of a people first way of thinking about things. And so we're going to go through that idea. But before we get there, Tina, tell us a little bit about yourself and your career.
Wow. Let's see. A little bit about myself personally. I'm an avid concert goer, and I've been dabbling in archery, believe it or not.
Oh, cool.
But as far as my career, let's see. I started my career, surprisingly enough, as an engineer, a manufacturing engineer. I was very fortunate to work with some amazing companies that really put me in positions to take on amazing projects across the operation. And I really, got hold of this is because they lean manufacturing came to be, right? I was tagged as one of those engineers to really change the organization's culture from where it was to more of a lean way of thinking and methodologies. So I was able to go all over the place and work with some great companies, changing their culture to a lean way of thinking and doing things.
Yeah. And I mean, working with companies that make stuff, you have lots of different levels of challenges, companies that have retail outlets, which you've done throughout your
Yep.
career, present tons of different levels of challenges. And Tina, we were speaking before the show. I love this kind of people-led operation idea. Tell me more about how you think about really topics like HR and talent management and how that tethers together with the operation of a business.
Oh, absolutely. And that's where I found my passion for the people side of the business, the HR, the people operations, is I started to realize when you're working through these transformations and you're working with people, it really becomes a people job. Yeah, I was going to be training you or developing curriculum for different types of processes and things like that. But really, when you start to get into the crux of it, you start to realize, wow, this is a people thing. This is a cultural thing. How am I going to change that in a positive way so people can buy into that? And when I would go to HR and start talking about this as a young women engineer, right? It's like,
Right.
what do you know? We're here to onboard people and interview them and things like that, not taking anything away from these talented individuals, but they weren't in tune with operations, what we were doing, what we needed to do. And surprisingly enough, they didn't spend a lot of time with us. So
Right.
I started spending a lot more time with them
Yeah.
and really explaining what we were doing, what we were looking for in a good candidate, where our culture was so that they can better align candidates with our culture, and where we were going and what types of opportunities people had with this transformation that the companies in different areas were going through. So that's when I started moving more and more into the human resource arena and starting to
Yeah.
realize, wow, operations we really need to bring together HR in this transformational change that we're going through, and not just with that particular company, but I started realizing that as I went and furthered my career in operations, I started bringing in HR more and more until I found, oh, well, why don't you lead operations or why don't you lead HR as part of the operations group? Sure, I absolutely love that because then I was working so closely and then I was able to really develop strategies with the HR department and development of our people with them and with the operational strategy, in mind.
What an interesting moment we live in on the topic of talent, Tina. Businesses are talking about tons of talent issues, whether it be talent shortages, talent upskilling, diversity, equity, and inclusion challenges. What are you seeing as the key topics right now for businesses, small to medium-sized businesses, as well as larger operations when they're tackling the people issues related to a business?
That's a good question. As far as upskilling, especially because we know that it's hard to attract good talent and then keep it. I think one of the keys to keeping your good talent is really upskilling your employees, getting them cross-trained, understanding what your needs are as an organization, short and long term, and then building your staff, bringing in the right people for training. And it doesn't have to be big formal training. It could be something, minor, maybe one department training another on a particular skill or task. This is really a way to manage your labor as well.
Mhm.
I don't know if, but some of my work, I've been able to work with some companies, and some of them have been cannabis companies.
Yeah.
As far as, diversity, equity, and inclusion, I have seen these companies are just amazing with their inclusivity.
Mhm.
They're so diverse. Although they're, still an immature industry and they're getting there, they struggle with regular problems like any other company. But one that they don't is their ability to attract a very diverse group of individuals, and talented individuals at that. So I think that long term for them, that is definitely something that's going to be one of their competitive advantages. And other companies can definitely learn from what they're doing with their diversity and inclusion. They are probably some of the most diverse organizations I've ever had pleasure of working with.
That's amazing. And I would say that we're going to see a lot of these key topics: diversity, equity, and inclusion. Would say things like upskilling. I'd also just say just the talent shortage issue has been a big issue really during the last couple of years with COVID and even coming out of COVID. Tell me more about the talent challenges and shortfalls, and how do we think through that?
Yeah, it is definitely a struggle, especially for some of your key talent. I know, engineers and things like that have been very difficult to come by. For us, what we've done in the past, and just recently, I worked with a company where we really did focus on putting together a great employee value proposition. Not only so that employees internally can see the different benefits and opportunities that the company is offering that some employees may not have even have been aware of,
Hmm.
but really getting to learn from the employees what more they can need, what more they would like to see in benefits offered. And then a lot of it is not just always more money or better health care or things like that. Those are kind of standard, people are always looking for things like that, but some flexibility. One company wanted to be able to bring their animals, their pets to work, their dogs and stuff like that, which, we work through those things as HR and figure out, okay, what can we do? What can't we do? But I think the value proposition and really putting together a solid value proposition to enhance talent to look at our companies differently and what different things we can bring to the table for them. I think that was probably the biggest way that we brought in fresh talent. The last company I was working with, we brought in three high level management that we probably wouldn't have been able to get had we not been able to put together a comprehensive value proposition for them.
Right. And it's also interesting, we're hearing a lot of discussion today about things like hybrid working or completely virtual working or get thee back to the office, right? We have a lot of different voices challenging the way we work and what is the future of work. Tell me some thoughts from your perspective and your experiences that can help us think through these challenges.
Yeah, I think about this a lot. Not to get off topic, but a very long time ago when I first started my career, I needed to work from home for a period of time. And I remember the VP that I reported to, he said, Absolutely, Tina, I trust you 100%." This is before, working from home was ever a thing.
Right.
And it honestly changed the trajectory of my career tremendously. So when I look at people or organizations that are like, nope, absolutely not. Everybody's got to come back or things like that. You really have to look at the job and how that role can continue to support the organization, even if they're not there. They don't, and what we've learned, they don't have to be there in a lot of cases, and
Yeah.
right. And I've seen that just the nope, everybody's got to come back. It really probably is not the best way to approach the flexibility employees are looking for. There are definitely opportunities and positions and things like that that absolutely can remain remote. And I think that leaders, operational leaders, organizational leaders, they really do need to look at that differently and come with a different perspective.
Yeah.
Because I think that they're really going to be missing out on some key talent that they would not have otherwise been able to get if they're not flexible with that. And then just, as far as, HR leaders and things like that, we have to look at those job descriptions, those roles, and look at it within the scope of the organization, the structure, and say, okay, what can be flexible, and what absolutely can't, or what can be a hybrid,
Right.
and then build those into our organizations with the help of operations, obviously, because
Yeah.
they have to be able to be a contributor.
Very, very well said, Tina. I think it's really going to be a vertical by vertical and role by role discussion. But wow, I really think some of these companies that take these hard lines are flawed in their thinking. And whether we're in a positive economy or a negative economy, it's always going to be about
Yeah,
talent. So got to make sure that it
absolutely.
works for the people. And let's kind of push it into the today and the future here, Tina. I mean, when you look forward here in 2023, what's on the docket? I mean, we hear about economic challenges right now, and yet at the same time, perhaps they're not as bad as we thought initially. So it's very hard for me to read through the tea leaves on this one. What are you seeing in 2023 in terms of
you know
managing people and organizations?
Yeah, I was reading some trends for 2023, and I was reading this interesting article just the other day on in Harvard Business Review, working knowledge, and one of the things that I absolutely loved, they made mention to, is looking to maybe potentially rehire those people who, in the thick of things, when people were in this midst of the great resignation and switching positions and leaving organizations for, greener pastures potentially, or flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
It may be that in some cases now that they're like, hey, I'm ready to go back. And really, these employers looking and saying, we need this talent back. Is this potentially a good opportunity to bring these people back,
Mm.
and open that line of communication again? I think you know, it's not to say that organizations are going to bring everybody back, but definitely keeping that eye out for good talent that you would like to bring back, maybe tapping into that a little bit.
Okay.
I definitely see that as a potential going forward. Really, I think in 2023, organizations are going to have to rebuild the trust with their employees.
Mm.
We know we had, some huge layoffs and things like that, cutbacks, in anticipation of a recession.
Yeah.
And, hopefully that we don't see that come to fruition. Um,
Well, I
but
mean,
those,
I felt that at moments we were seeing layoffs that were being used tactically to manage terminations. And that was kind of a nasty game where you'd hear a CEO come on and say, well, everyone's got to get back to the office because that CEO knew that Joe and Susie were not going to come back and they would resign. So therefore they could get out of paying them any form of severance, which I hate to
oh
hear
no.
that type of stuff, but I definitely felt like that was happening. And it'll be really interesting. I think that trust thing that you highlighted there is absolutely critical. And in some ways, we have more connection with our colleagues than ever before. I would say I feel like I have almost like an intimate knowledge of who's got a dog or a bird or, a couple of kids that might be causing mischief than ever before, right? But at the same time, we still have to find ways to connect physically and meet in physical spaces as well. I mean,
Absolutely.
Tina, amazing to chat with you today. If someone wanted to meet and reach you, what's the best place to connect with you?
Oh, absolutely. Well, my LinkedIn's always up there for anybody who wants to message me via LinkedIn. But you can absolutely, email me at tinamdominguez@hotmail.com. My phone number, 626-825-3444. I'm always open, to have a interesting conversation about a myriad of different things, especially when it involves work and my passion for that.
Yeah, and thank you so much for being on the show today, Tina. We've been talking to Tina Dominguez. She's got an extensive career really driving operations, but really kind of connecting those people issues with the operations and talent management and talent growth and handling those lovely things that we have to sort out, like talent and talent training, making sure that we have diverse workforces, making sure that we're upskilling folks. And we've been talking to Tina really about the state of the market, where things are, what companies are thinking about, how this pandemic moment that we lived through perhaps brought certain topics to the fore, but at the same time, really has also presented some really interesting opportunities and challenges to develop really interesting solutions. Tina, thank you so much for being on Uncaged today, and we look forward to having you back.
Awesome. Thank you. It was a pleasure. Bye.
Cheers.